Hello, everyone, and welcome to the final episode of Season 5 of the Seattle Kraken's official podcast, Signals from the Deep. I guess technically, JT, this wouldn't be Season 5 of the podcast, but it's the last episode that we are recording in Season 5 of the Kraken.
We're ready to go, as always.
We are ready to go. There's a lot to discuss, and at the same time, I have so much to say and also not a lot to say, just given where we're at right now as we're recording this podcast. So first, thought that I would just start by just checking in. What are you going to do this offseason? And Drew, our producer extraordinaire, what are you going to do? I know you don't have an offseason quite in the same way maybe as we do, but any plans for the summer for either of you?
Golf. As always, got new clubs. So those are nice. I've already hit them a couple times. New drivers coming in, some other clubs. Yeah, so I'm excited about the golf season. Finally get to put my membership to use since I do not go to the club basically from the start of the season to the end of the season. So try to make up for that in the summer. Do a lot of swimming, a couple trips here and there.
Swimming?
Well,
are you a swimmer?
Take the kids swimming.
Oh, I go in.
No, there's a diving board. It's at the golf course, so I like to do flips off the diving board and do stupid things and thinking that I'm, 18, 19, 20 years old again. So yeah,
you gotta stay young at heart.
Yeah, exactly. So a lot of golf, a lot of swimming, and I think a lot of time, we spend a lot on the road. So I get to spend the time with the kids, especially once school is out. So it's a laid back kind of summer, but also, one that's it's needed after a long season to be able to do that, especially getting time or more time with the kids.
You also just already got a couple of new tattoos, too.
Yeah, that's
You were
true.
just showing me.
Yeah, I did.
Any more tats coming?
Yeah, so I did. I got a Mewtwo, I got a Snorlax, and I got a Dragonite tattoo yesterday. And I still have to put Pikachu, Pokeball, and Mew, and maybe Aerodactyl. I'm trying to see if it'll fit, but I'm finishing. Then I'll be done with my left leg. It'll be completely done once I finish those ones. So that's what I have on the tattoos, but I don't really do a lot of tattoos in the summer because you want to be outside. I want to be in the sun, so like the healing process. So I try to get as much done in the winter as I can, but I'm sure I'll still probably end up getting one or two more as the summer goes along.
Yeah. Drew, how about you? Any trips, anything fun coming up?
No real trips planned, but I'm also going to get back on the golf train. I started a couple years ago, so I'm still more of a beginner, but didn't get to it as much this winter as I wanted to, so I'm a little rusty, but pick it back up and then catch up on movies that I missed all season.
I was going to say, have you seen any of the movies yet since we last talked, Drew? Have you yet? You haven't seen Project Hail Mary or the Mario movie yet.
No,
Dang it.
I saw the Mario movie.
You saw Mario?
Yeah.
Thoughts?
How was it?
It was okay.
Kids like it?
They liked it. I didn't think it was as good.
I really liked it. I just really like what they're doing with those Mario movies in the art style and the colors and the animation and the use of the gameplay incorporated into the film, if that makes sense. I just think that's really clever. But there were a lot of things that it felt like it was a second movie.
I thought that the use of other IP was really cool in that movie.
See, I disagree. I didn't like that.
No,
I was like, we don't need to go multiverse in movie 2, okay?
But it wasn't
I don't need
not a spoiler, but it wasn't a main part of the movie. There was just some little pieces that I thought were cool.
I just think it didn't add anything.
And
I guess it's with you. It did for you, so that's okay. I know. I didn't care for that.
No, I did because I played that as a kid.
Yeah.
That was one of my favorite games. Sorry, I mouthed it. I didn't want to.
No spoilers. No spoilers.
The spoiler of what we were talking about, but that was I really did like that. It brought back some core childhood memories.
Yeah. Well, I will definitely be seeing a lot of movies. My husband and I love to go to the movie theater. I see almost everything that comes out if I can, because I just don't really have, during the season, I don't have the energy to socialize. So if I'm going to leave my house, I'm just going to go see a movie where I don't have to talk to anyone. So, but I like to do that in the summer too. I also just like to be home. Like you said, it's we travel so much during the season. We're never home. The best part of the off season is just cooking my own meals. Things that people who work normal jobs get to do is what I look forward to in the summer. I'm I'm going to go to the grocery store and get produce, and it's not going to rot because I'm going to actually be home to eat it, and I will. So I know you can't relate to produce, JT, but
no.
Yeah.
Any Disney trips planned?
No, not
really.
Not that I.
Not
I mean,
yet.
I can always be convinced to a Disney trip.
I'll pitch you.
Not a cruise.
Nope. I have different Disney trips planned, of course. Well, first of all, yeah, when we were in Vegas for the last broadcast of the season, literally I just like randomly found a Disney cruise and I texted my stepmom as a joke, somebody who's never been on a cruise, and she was like, I would do that. So yes, we're going on a 4-day Disney cruise in like a week. So I am doing that. The other thing that we're doing is Allison and I are going to Disneyland Pride Night in June. We bought our tickets last week. So we're doing that, and that's going to be really fun. And you could join us, and we could vlog it, JT.
I can always be convinced. We'll see.
Yeah, it's a Tuesday, though, so it's kind of random, but
hey,
I think it's going to be really fun. Their after hours and nights are really cool, and I bet like Pride Night will be super like extra and colorful and fun. So I'm excited.
50-50. We'll see.
Okay. Watch for that, folks. All right, let's talk hockey, shall we? That's enough off-season chatter. So there is so much, honestly, to digest from all of the various exit interviews. A lot of media has happened since we last recorded. I think that if you are interested in hearing directly from Todd Leiweke, Jason Bottrill, Lane Lambert, any of the players, or rather most of the players that did on-camera exit interviews, that is all on the Kraken's YouTube channel, and I honestly highly recommend you go listen to them and hear exactly all of their different individual takes on the season, because there honestly is like a lot there. So we cannot get into all of that right here, right now. So I thought a good place for us to start would be to take some questions from fans. What are things that, JT and I can kind of comment on or offer our perspectives on? And just keep in mind, again, that these are just our perspectives. These are just our opinions, our observations as well, which, as we learned from the player exit interviews, also vary a lot, So let's start with some questions, shall we?
Yeah, let's go.
Okay. And the questions do vary. So the very first one that I got came from Tina on Blue Sky. And I think this is a good place to start. She said, top 3 things the Kraken need to do this summer. Top 3 things. Do you want to start or should I start?
Yeah, I think there was plenty of good things that we looked at part of the seasons, and obviously when you go through, one of the things that definitely needs to be fixed when you look at the special team side would be the penalty kill. That's one thing that sort of let them down, especially late, but, throughout the entirety of the season where they stand, throughout the entirety of the league, it was always towards the bottom portion, in the penalty killing aspect. Now there were good stretches of it, but it's very hard to change that overall percentage. But that would be one area we know. So often a game comes down to, do you get the penalty kill at the right time? Do you get a power play at the right time? And the power play was good for them for a vast majority of the season, but coming back from the break, that was an area that definitely kind of let down. I think when you're looking at, we've heard from Bots and other players as well, but especially from Bots talking about the forward group and trying to get more scoring from that side of it. Obviously it's a league where you have to score more goals than the other team, right? That's how you win the game. So defensively, you want to be as sound as possible. So how do you find, whether that's free agency, is that making trades, is that through your youth movement, just finding a way to be a more offensive team without disregarding the defensive side of the game and the defensive structure that made them successful, especially through parts of the season. It was because of the defensive play and the goaltending. So you can't just offload and say, hey, we're just going to go all offense this year and we're not going to care about the defense just so we can score more goals. I think that would be a problem in and of itself again. And
that's something, sorry to interrupt, but that's something that when Lane came in this year, Lane Lambert had to fix.
Yep.
That's why they had to tear it down, so to speak, to defensive basics. Correct. So that then they could try to build the offensive game back up. You have to have that foundation defensively.
Yeah, you start from there. You have to start from the defensive side of the game. And then, the other thing, which is kind of a hard thing, I guess, to say, like, to pinpoint on how do you do that versus when we say fix the penalty kill, right? Whether that's bringing in players that are better at face-off so you can win more draws on a face-off and, obviously right at the start clear, 15, 20 seconds by forcing them to go down, or is it structure within a penalty kill? When you look at those things, it's a little easier or more tangible to, like, how do you fix that? But I also would say the consistency aspect of the game would be the 3 things that I would look at. At times you'd see the team playing exactly how they want to play, and then the next night or 2 nights later you look at it and be like, that didn't seem like the exact same style or same team that was playing 2 nights ago. It's 82 game season. It's a long season. You're not going to have your best stuff every single night, but how do you stay within that structure? How do you stay consistent even if you don't have your best stuff? So just trying to find a more consistent game and a more consistent game of how the Kraken want to play night in and night out would be the three things that initially popped to my head.
Yeah. No, I think those are 100%. You are right on the nose. I'm going to try to go with three different things for the sake of just throwing a lot of options out there and for the sake of entertainment. The first thing that I'm going to go with is leadership, and I think that speaks to a little bit to the consistency thing. I think there needs to be stronger leadership and standard among the players themselves in the locker room. I think they know that. I don't think that's a secret. We heard a bunch of that from them, in these exit interviews. And in my opinion, when you look at the way that the team fell off after the break, that's kind of what it comes down to, is a team dynamic thing, a belief thing, a consistency thing. It's not just an X's and O's thing. And, we've talked about this a lot, but obviously when, they traded Yanni Gourde last year, they didn't add another letter. So, and there's, questions obviously with Jaden Schwartz being a free agent, like there is the possibility of a letter. So I personally would like to see stronger leadership, even if that is from the same guys that already currently have letters. I just think that, especially with the young team, we've been talking a lot, or the team has been talking a lot this last week about this locker room being quiet. It is a quiet locker room. It is a very quiet locker room. That's not a secret, but I think it's just, it creates a dynamic that I don't know is helping some of the young guys, if that makes sense. So, not to
interrupt on, but there's nothing wrong per se with a quiet locker room, but it's then, are you speaking up at the right time in the right place, and how does that work? Because I've been in locker rooms, many different ones, and not every single one of them is loud, vocal after every single loss, or of what they need to do. But it's about, I always look at, when I would say the best leaders, in my opinion, were the ones who knew when to step up. And it doesn't mean that they were yelling and barking out orders after every game, after every loss. It was the timing of knowing when's the right time to push, when's the right time to pull somebody aside on a one-on-one. When's the time to pump up somebody's game, right? It's not always the negative side of leadership as well. There's also the positive side. So quiet isn't necessarily bad. There's different ways for every person to lead. It's on each person, but I think it's the timing that you need to see that makes the quiet locker room okay, right? If it's not the right timing, then all of a sudden you're okay, it's too quiet. No one's saying anything at any, but it's the right timing part of it.
Yeah, and that's something that we heard, Jared McCann commented on it in a way. He's like, we need to figure out when should we be yelling? When should we not be yelling? He kind of alluded to, it doesn't feel like we should be yelling at the kids for making a mistake. This, and you can hear this from him in his exit interview. So he makes that comment. There is clearly, different ideas of that dynamic right now. And it's not necessarily about just who's wearing a letter. It is about how that conversation, how that accountability amongst the players is manifesting kind of. So, and I think, to your point, it's not that a quiet locker room is bad. It's just finding that right mix of personality and competitiveness too, So anyway, so I'm saying leadership, but that's kind of...
It's all encompassing.
It's all encompassing. Yeah. Drew, did you have a question? Oh, I thought I saw you raise your hand in there. So, okay, my next one is about the young players and the off seasons that they need to have, the work that they need to put in. This was definitely something that we heard quite a bit from General Manager Jason Bottrill in his end of season availability, was really identifying what specific areas certain young players excelled in and where they need to grow. And I think when we're talking young players, it's not just the Coachella Valley guys either. It's not just some of those prospects or those Oscar Fisker Molgard types. It's also Matty Beniers, and he knows that, and we've seen him year by year continue to take those steps. So I think a lot of them, obviously, they need to put some time in the gym. I think a lot of guys on this team in general, they know that they should be putting some time in the gym. Berkeley Catton working on that shot. That's something that we heard from him in his exit interview as well. So I would really love to see a lot of those guys, Jacob Melanson and Ryan Winterton, and even some of the Coachella guys like Tyson Jugnoff, really do everything that they can in the off season to elevate both in skills and just in conditioning and strength. So I think that is huge for this team when we're talking about building towards that future. You can't force your body, but like if Berkeley could come back bigger and stronger, that'd be huge for this team, right? So.
Yeah, I mean, I think the experience, right, of playing the full season, dealing with the travel the way that they do, it's definitely different. Obviously, coming from college for myself, it was a little bit different and like realizing like, oh, okay, so this is a little different than college. Like I need to be more in the gym this year than I've ever been before. And like, how do you just keep finding ways to improve? And that's all what it's all about. And obviously, like you said, you can only push your body so far, right? Like if you're a speed guy, for me, it's like there was no point in me trying to gain 15, 20 pounds of muscle. Like then I would lose my speed. It would lose other assets of what made me successful. So for those guys, you have to find that balance, right? Like Berkeley's not going to all of a sudden come in and be 200 pounds and just a fire hydrant out there knocking guys over. Like, you know what I mean? Like finding that balance of how do you get bigger and stronger in different areas and be more, stable, I guess would be the word, right? When you're on the pucks, when you're in the corners, because he's not going to be able to change drastically, right? But how do you make those incremental, boost within, whether it's the strength, whether it's your stability in different aspects where you found trouble throughout the year, which again, that's normal. It's adjusting to an entirely different league. It's adjusting to a different schedule when it comes to travel and how often these games are. So for all of the younger players, even if it's your second, third year in the league, like you're still always evaluating and how do we get better in the off season.
Yeah, totally. And I also wasn't just calling out Berkeley necessarily,
but of course
Berkeley and like Ryan Winterton, both of those two individuals, Lane talked about at the end of the season, like working on their shot in particular. If you can get a little more scoring out of those guys, out of Shane Wright, obviously, that's, Shane and his development was a big source of conversation with in Lane's exit interview as well. But if you can get a little bit more out of all of those guys, it helps what we're talking about with that offensive dip too. But again, it's a young team. It's a young group, a lot to learn. So I think it would be great if a lot of them had solid off seasons. So, okay. And then my last one is, I think a priority for this team mix. Again, we've talked about this a little bit. This team needs a little more toughness, a little more snarl, a little bit more something. That doesn't necessarily mean fighting. That doesn't necessarily mean some like bruiser. Like it's not that at all. It is kind of a vibe thing, right? It's a little bit of a personality thing, but it's about the personality of how you play. It can't just be Jacob Melanson. Yeah. As Montour told Ian Furness on the radio the other day, it's like, we can't just have Melly. Like they need a little more snarl. So in my opinion, obviously this group needs to, or in the off season, they're going to be evaluating where they can add in scoring and in all of these ways. But I do think a little more toughness, a little more snarl. That would be another word ideal.
That I would use, like pushback, right? Like when teams
tenacity.
Exactly, out on the ice, just to have that little mindset, right? And it's not always going to go your way, but like we saw when Melly came in and how he could change the momentum within a game. But now you're like, when you look at Montour's comments, it can't just be Melly. Are you waiting on one person to do it, right? How do you have multiple facets of that? And it does, like you said, it's not necessarily a fight. It doesn't always have to be that you're going to drop your mitts, but that game-changing hit, that game-changing play, and that's just kind of like a mindset going in, right? And some players really rely on that. Some people, that's why they're in the league, right? And now how do you find that mix, right? So you still have to have the ability to play, but at the same time, where's that pushback come from? Where does that bite come from?
Yeah, and to your point too, it's like it also has to be a player that, or players or whatever, that complement what the team needs skill-wise too, and identity-wise in their game. So it's hard. It's much easier said than done.
Correct.
Is my point. It's much easier said than done, but I think that would be ideal to bring a little bit more of that vibe to this group, in addition to that scoring and the other things. So you have PK, more scoring forwards, and consistency.
Correct.
I have leadership, young guys' growth in the offseason, and adding a little toughness, a little snarl, a little tenacity to the group. So cool. All right. Shall we take our next question? I know that was a big first question, but I thought I would get us off to a good start. Okay, this one's more of a discussion here, JT.
Okay.
This comes from Aaron on Blue Sky. Aaron asks, what is this team's identity? Do you want to start, or do you want me to start?
I mean, I can start.
Okay.
I think there's a difference. I think it goes to the consistency factor of my third point, right? And there are times where they play a strong, solid defensive game. They want to be a fast skating team, moving the puck up quickly, spending as little time in the defensive zone, right? Like, they're not going to necessarily wow you when it comes to the offensive side of the game. But at the same time, they want to be a team that is hard to play against. And I think that's where the consistency came in, why it's sometimes hard to identify what the team's true identity is, because some games, or for a week or so stretch or a month, you look at a team that's playing hard to play. They're a hard to play against hockey team, clog up the middle of the ice, don't give anybody any room. And to me, that's about the tenacity, playing strong, getting pucks in at the right times. But then there's times where that wasn't there, right? And you're looking at a team and you're seeing, what is this team's identity? How are they playing? That didn't look like the team from last week. And I don't think the opponent should matter, right? Like, if you play your game, it doesn't matter who you're playing against. It could be the best team in the league. It could be a team that's at the bottom of the league. You stay within your structure. And this is a team that, again, relies on playing sound defensively to get their offensive chances. And when they do, they're a team, that has to capitalize on those offensive chances. And we've seen it happen. We've seen it work, even going back to, the first and second year when you had Hackstall as the coach. They were a team that was completely hard to play against. And whether they won or lost the game, it was the exact same thing over and over again. And you had an identity. You sort of got away from that identity, and then you move on, you get another coach, and now you're on your third coach, and you've started to play that way for, I would say, probably majority of the games, right? Like, you still were in a good spot throughout the season, but it's how do you find that consistency to play every single game and get back to that point where, I remember in the first couple years, it was like every team was saying, man, Seattle's a hard team to play against. Seattle may not have won the game, but every game they said, that was a hard game. That was a hard team to play against. And that's when you figure out you have a real identity, when it's every game that someone's saying, this is how that team plays.
100%. And, I think a lot of people right now, when they're talking about this team, it's all, we need a star. It's like, that's not how this team is built right now. And it's not how it can be built in the immediate future, right? Because that, to your point, that is the identity of this group. I remember Hacksaw used to say, and I think, Lane has used similar terms. It's like, we need to be a lunch pail team. Yeah. A lunch pail team where every single guy is bringing their absolute best, and they're leaving everything on the table. And I think that's been the difference between games that this team, even this year, won and lost. And we didn't see, and they know that there was not every single guy leaving everything on the table every single night after the Olympic
break. Got to know
your
strengths, know your weaknesses, and how do you play within that, right? And at times overstretch, right? Or became a team that wanted to pass the puck into the net instead of getting to the net front and just taking one off the shin pads. Like, again, is it pretty? No.
Yeah.
But it still counts the same way, right? And being a hard team on the forecheck and creating chances that way versus, it needs to be off the rush. It needs to be a nice 3-on-2 backdoor pass.
We're gritty, grungy Seattle. Our hockey's got to be gritty, grungy. That's.
And again, that doesn't mean it can't change. It doesn't mean that whether it's through trades and through drafting, that, all of a sudden you get a star player and all of a sudden he comes in and that can change. Like, again, I've played on a team with Minnesota that was always a boring team, right? But now you look at Minnesota and you look at the likes of Boldy, Faber, Kaprizov. Obviously, they have Hughes now, but now it's a completely, it's not that long ago that Minnesota was playing a very boring style of hockey. Now they still have a strong defense game, and I'm just speaking from experience of being in that locker room where, again, not many people would say that Minnesota back then was playing the most exciting brand of hockey, but that's how Minnesota, we needed to play to win games, and that's how we made it to where, as far as you make it. But it's a completely different thing now. You're looking at 5-6 years down the road. Doesn't mean that it's going to always be the identity of the team, but for the roster that's consumed, you have to find your strengths and what gives you the best chance to win. And for the Kraken, it is a sort of the lunch pail mentality. It is a hard-working team and a tough team to play against.
Definitely. All right, next question here.
Sorry, that was long-winded. Kind of got off the...
No, not at all. That was great. I think you said, and I guess maybe I'll add one more thing to it too, is that I think this group is actually trying to kind of reinvigorate that identity as well. And I think we can talk a little bit more about Lane as, we go on and as it feels, natural in this conversation. But definitely identity setting, culture setting has been a big focus of Lane since day one of camp. So intentional about those things and building things from the literal ground up. Like, I don't care what this was. We're getting the base right. We are getting the base right.
Correct.
And that goes for what I believe his philosophy is with player development as well. It's like we need to focus on habits and standard and consistency first. And he's been really intentional about that. And I think that will continue to build and feed this team's identity as it evolves too. So they didn't end there, but we saw it.
Yeah, correct. It's a work in progress still.
All right, next question comes from Man Hockey 41. Wow, what a username on Blue Sky. Maybe a Riker Evans fan, number 41 perhaps. Riker, is this your burner? No, just kidding. It says, what Firebirds do you expect to see in the show next season? Oscar Fisker Molgard full-time, Morrison, Furcus, Jugnoth. I can start here. I honestly cannot say who I expect to see next season at all because we don't know at this point what moves will be made when it comes to trades or free agency or signing. So, I truly, truly cannot say. I will say, I think Oscar Fisker Molgard has earned himself a lot of goodwill. Lane definitely seems to be a fan of him, as does Jason Bottrill. They seem really happy in general with his game, his development, his confidence. He's been great to work with. So if he is here, I could see that being a possibility. The other one I could see certainly being a possibility, depending on so many things, is possibly Tyson Jugnoth. He has had a great season in Coachella Valley. He really stood out during preseason and training camp. I think he's got a lot of elements that this team is excited about in the future. So I could not tell you if that is next year or whatever. I don't know, but I think there's a lot to be excited about.
It all depends on what moves are made, what does the roster look like, But I will say there's a big difference too, obviously from that point, it's a twofold, right? Are we talking right out of camp? Right. Who's going to be here out of camp? Is it, who gets a call up? Obviously the game, you don't wish injuries, but that's part of what happens. So who's going to be ready at that moment? Who's playing well? Obviously, you got to see Yanni Newman come up for different games this year. Is it a situation like that where they're coming up, after a call-up and it's just, a smaller segment? Especially like at the end of the year, you get the quick call-up or, games here and there. I think there's plenty of names that have worked their way, which you have already named, to at least get that point. But is it right out of camp? Nobody, who knows? It really depends on the roster. And then as the season goes on, is how healthy is the team, right? Like if you don't make the team out of camp and the team stays healthy all year, it is very hard to get, those young players, those games and that experience in the National Hockey League if the team is healthy. Or you look at down the stretch and you're playing and you're fighting for a playoff spot. Well, it's hard to get those guys games when that 2 points means so much at the end of the year. So does it happen? I'm sure we'll see some of those guys at some point, but at the end of the day, like you said, it's impossible to really know when you don't necessarily have a roster. It may be easier as the summer kind of goes on and we see what moves have been made, what the roster is starting to look like, who has a shot, and an inside track, an outside track to make the team out of camp. But again, it's all up to those players too, right? What does their summer look like? How do they come into camp? Because at the end of the day, you could have the best American Hockey League season and you come into camp and it just isn't right? Well, it's going to be hard for your name to still be at the top of that list. Or even a guy like Furcus, the work that he put in, even after maybe a season where he could have done more in the American Hockey League, you look at going into camp maybe he now jumps, the head of the next person in line because of how good his camp was. So it's almost an impossible situation or a possible question to answer without seeing it all play out.
And to that point, there were, I would say, two surprises, at least to me, I don't know for you, that came out of camp this year, which was none of us necessarily anticipated that Ryan Winterton was going to be here the entire year. We didn't even have him do a sit down interview on media day at the beginning of the year, because we never know when we're doing those. And the other one was Ben Myers. Lane was a really big fan of Ben Myers, pretty much. Well, I should say really big fan. He's the coach, but it was clear that he liked Ben's camp and that he was impressed with him. And Ben was on this team the whole year.
And I think you look at the beginning of the season too, right? Like injuries in training camp that happen, and guys need to make a roster, so anything can happen. Obviously, it's up to them to put in the work in the summer and be ready to go come that first day of camp.
Yeah. All right, let's take a quick break from the hockey questions and just we'll get back to them, people, don't worry. But we did get a couple of fun questions in here. Okay, this one is, what is your favorite goofy memory of this season with John and Edzo? The four of you have such amazing chemistry and made this season watchable. From Trash Panda.
You could just cue the entire outtakes video. Like that was, but if I had to pick a singular, it's between two. It was probably the book. That was high. That was very high on my list. When we had the camera, the robo camera looking down, and the book was there, and he was like slapping his hand because he was trying to move it. Like that was pure comedy. And then I think the other one was when Edzo jumped in and said, "That's a penalty," and like John was ready to say it, and he said, "I know." And so that one was up there. But there's so many. I mean, you could just pick any point of any game. There's always something going on.
My favorite was when it was pretty early in the season, I believe, but we were in Washington playing the Caps.
Oh, God. Yeah, I already know what that is.
I don't know. Folks, there's been a lot of games of Kraken hockey, okay? We covered a lot of games that haven't been necessarily the most fun to cover, and this was one of those games. And Edzo, is it Frank? Was it Frank Nazer? Is he?
Ethan
No,
Frank.
he's in Chicago. Ethan Frank, yeah. Ethan Frank, and Edzo just wouldn't stop talking about Frank, and he was just working the word Frank and everything. He's like, "Well, Johnny, to be frank with you," and like everything was about Frank for like 2/3 of the game, and he was just wheezing at his own joke, like the entire. And John was so over it by the third period, and then Edzo, there came a point where he couldn't even talk anymore. And I remember, I'm like, I got to do a post-game interview where the vibe is going to be so bad compared to what I've been listening to for the last 40 minutes.
Sometimes things go off the rails, okay?
And that was early. That was pretty early in the season.
Every single game. That's why you got to tune in, right?
Like second game or something?
You got to tune in because you never know. You never know what's going to happen on the air.
Oh, yeah. So just the Frank of it all. Ethan Frank.
Cue the outtakes. There's so many. There's so many.
Okay, one more fun-ish question for you before we get back to hockey, just for a break. Okay, this one comes from Mark Davis. He says, if you and JT had to sing a karaoke duet together, what would it be?
Well, first off, it's not happening.
Okay.
There's a 0% chance that it would happen. I will never do karaoke. Wow. Not gonna happen. And
JT hates fun.
I hate karaoke. If I had, but see, then that's the thing. Like
it's a duet.
Yeah.
I picked probably a Disney song.
I was gonna say.
Yeah. What if we did like I Just Can't Wait to Be King from The Lion King? It's more of a solo, but there's like ensemble parts. You could be Simba, and then I could be Timon, Pumbaa, and Nala.
I will give that
and
one
Zazu.
a plus. But it would take a lot for that to happen.
Hakuna Matata?
No.
That means no worries for the rest of your days, JT.
I'm trying to think of another one though. Yeah, no, I just wouldn't do it. 0%
All right,
chance.
here's a question that I think you should answer for the fans.
Okay.
Everybody thinks that you hate Fitz and calling games with Fitz.
I do hate Fitz. What are you talking about?
Exactly.
No, I'm just saying.
No, I think that a lot of viewers and fans have not yet figured out that you and Fitz have like the same relationship as John and Edzo on air, and everyone's like, JT hates Fitz. It's like, no.
It's very comparable. It's like we're brothers. Like we fight like we're brothers all the time. If you could sit on the bus just one day with us, going back and forth, Piper, you have heard.
Don't recommend it. Do not recommend it.
We have some of the dumbest arguments over.
It's So annoying.
Literally the most like.
I can feel myself
innocent
losing
thing.
brain cells listening to them.
No, we have a lot of fun. I do not hate Fitz for the record. How about for that?
Yeah. I just thought I would throw that out there because I was like, oh man, people like your saltiness is not detected in the same way as
no. We have a
good.
good relationship, Fitz and I.
Yeah, totally.
Sometimes we get on each other's nerves when we poke each other, especially in our bus conversations. But you know what? It's all in due fun.
Our next question. This is a good question. I like this question. Oh my gosh. As we are recording, two of our wonderful broadcast comrades, Allison Lucan and Ryan Shaber, are walking by in the 32 Bar and Grill. Love them. Okay. This question is from Commodore Schmid. Okay. How would you sell Seattle to a potential? Reference. Is it?
That's a reference to something?
Commodore Schmid Lap?
Yep. I was going to say it's probably Schmidt Lap. It's from the 1966 Batman movie.
Yeah. Okay.
Drew, I love your movie knowledge.
I have zero idea.
Wow, okay. Shout out. They ask, how would you sell Seattle to a potential free agent signing or player traded to the team? Before we get into this, Ian Furness, again, in a great interview with Brandon Montour, did ask him this question because Brandon Montour obviously was a free agent signing and arguably one of the best ones that the team, has had. So I think it is worth listening to his perspective as somebody who literally came fresh off of a Stanley Cup win. So if you can find that, it was in a KJR interview. So maybe more valuable than our takes, but JT, you were once in that situation.
Yeah, I think the first thing you look at is, look at the arena, look at the fans. The amount of noise and support that this team has from a fan perspective, I think that is something that's enticing to players. They want to play. Obviously, they've played in this building as a visitor, right? But it's a different feel when you're on the home side of, loud buildings, teams that are selling out games and have a truly passionate fan base. So I think that's an easy sell right there. I think you look at the facilities, whether that's at Climate Pledge Arena, you look at KCI as well. The little things that the team does from a travel perspective, whether it's hotels, like all that, you can, everybody stays at nice hotels, but overall, I think the Kraken do a great job when it comes to that side of the game. Yep, being a first class organization. And, I think you have to look at the team and where they're going. But I think the easiest selling point is, once you do become a winning team, right? Like once you can say, hey, we've been in the playoffs the last how many years and teams want to go there. I think that's the easiest way to sell a potential free agent is the winning aspect. Obviously that hasn't happened yet for the Kraken and they're working towards it, but they're doing all the right things when it comes to, like I said, the arena. The fans are amazing, not only just for the Kraken, but for all sports in Seattle as well. So I think the fans, you look at the facilities and the way they treat their players here it's top notch. And, they don't always have to. There's ways that you can cut corners in different parts of it. But the Kraken don't do that. So I think, those are the easy selling points, at this point. But the biggest selling point is, when you can say, hey, we're winning. You're going to be that piece. Well, I guess now it could be you're going to be that piece that's going to push us over the edge, to make the playoffs. But I think from a standpoint, from a player, and you're looking at the top end talent, and you want to get a high end free agent to come here, you're the piece that's the reason we haven't won the Stanley Cup yet. You're going to be the reason we go out and win the Stanley Cup. I think that's your selling point. They're the best selling point. That's down the road. So right now you look at, hey, who can be the piece to push the team into the playoffs. And while you're doing that, we're a first-rate organization from top to bottom.
And one of the things that Brandon pointed out as well is great kids, like great youth, great prospects. Like the future is actually very, very bright. And if you're going to sign a longer-term deal, that's something that you want to see too, is knowing that this isn't necessarily just a right here, right now thing either. Having that like actual long-term vision and committing to that, even if it feels like a grind. And, on that note too,
I'd say one more thing.
Okay.
For now, no state tax is
for now
is another positive.
Yes. And on the note too of, I lost my train of thought here.
Sorry.
Oh, no, that's okay. That's okay. One thing that he talked about a lot, that a lot of the players talked about in exit interviews that I think is a selling point in a way, is that our players like genuinely love playing here. Like they love playing here. Jordan Eberle loves this city.
Yep.
His family loves this city. Vince Dunn loves this city. Like Joey Decord loves the city. Philip Grubauer is opening like another business, I believe, here. Like invested in businesses. Like a lot of Matty Beniers loves this city, even though almost couldn't be further like from his home. Like I truly feel that so many of these players like actually love this city and they love this team, and they really, really do genuinely believe. They genuinely believe that they can win. And that is really important. If you don't believe it, it's definitely not, it doesn't matter even how much talent you have if you don't believe it. So although that could feel like nothing, that can feel like fluff, you got to prove it. You have to play like that. All of those things, like Montour, Stevie, Jordan, Matty, like Joey, like they genuinely love it here, and they believe in the vision that hockey operations has set out. So, you know, as fans, as broadcasters, and as employees, all those things, like we have all of our own takes, we have our own perceptions, we have our own opinions, but it's kind of hard to argue with the players themselves when they are like, no, we really, really, truly believe in this and we love this. And so, you know, that was kind of something that Monty was going on about as well, that we've also heard from Jordan and from others, is that like when you're talking about selling free agents, like they're like, I don't have a bad thing to say.
Yeah.
So, but winning, kind of the bottom line for a lot of free agents. Like they want to win, and you want players that want to win. That's the whole point. That's why 100%. We do this. So, let me see if I got any other questions here. I thought I had one more, but I feel like some of these are a little bit redundant. I feel like we've touched on a lot of these. We've touched on what our summers look like a little bit. So yeah, I think that's pretty much it for questions. Drew, I know we just yapped. Do you have any questions that you think we maybe missed, or anything that we should touch on?
Well, you were talking about bringing tenacity to the team, and I was wondering if there's any players in the Firebirds that you see that in.
I would say Tyson Jugnoth. Yeah. I mean, we watch so much Kraken hockey that sometimes it's hard to see much beyond the highlights of, you know, the regular season for the Firebirds. Obviously right now they're in the playoffs, but Tyson Jugnoth, he's got personality. He's got determination. He was in Seattle all last summer working in the gym with Nate Brookerson, the strength coach, who we had on an episode of Signals from the Deep, who's great and super insightful about that work with those young players, if you're curious. He's definitely one that stands out to me in tenacity, in terms of like his own game, his own determination, his competitiveness to make the team and all those things, but also he's physical. He could be a little spicy. So that's one.
Yeah.
Caden Hamill.
Yeah.
If you haven't seen the fight that he had with Alex Gallant, who pretty tough customer. He was playing when I was in the American Hockey League too, and he's a tough guy.
Coming from a tough guy, JT.
I am not tough compared to Alex Gallant, but he put him down. So that, I mean, again, that's just one aspect of it. But you think of that toughness and that delivery. I watched that fight on my son. It was all over X when it happened. So that'd be one.
Yeah, and that's more of a actual.
But
that's a fight. I
know, but
I don't think Jugnoth is like gonna fight, so I don't want to conflate the two.
No,
it's not that, but
go
it's
watch it
still
if you
different
haven't
kinds
seen
of
it.
tenacity, different kinds of toughness. So
I think he fought him. Did he fight him twice? Like, didn't he fight?
I saw that.
I think it was like another one again. The one I'm watching, like potential fight of the year type stuff.
So players to keep an eye out for.
Yeah. We should probably check with Evan
playoffs.
Pivnik on that one of the Firebirds. He'd probably have a better answer. Also, he's not a prospect, but John Hayden is down there, so you know, you always got that toughness.
Yeah. Correct.
Yes. Okay, so I just wanted to end us on a couple of thoughts here. First of all, I think it's really easy for us to focus on some of the things that went wrong this year, like just almost everything that happened after the Olympic break, other than Capo Caco, who had a great stretch after the Olympic break individually. Shout out to Capo. And Bobby McMahon being a great pickup, even though he was technically just a rental, but obviously they are, hoping to sign him, but he's going to have a lot of options. So, we will see, but he obviously came in and was a difference maker. So there were some positives after the break, but there's a lot of negatives, and it feels hard, especially for us who are living in it, to not kind of get bogged down in those negatives. But on the season on a whole, though, there were some big positives. One of those was the power play and goaltending as well.
Yeah, I think when you talk about the power play, obviously the last stretch after the break, not good, but just the comparative to where the power play was last season and the adjustment of how far it went. At times it was sitting in the top 10 throughout the year, and that's what you're asking for, right? We talked earlier in the podcast when we were talking about the penalty kill, and like power plays and penalty kills can win you a game, right? Do you get the power play goal at the right time? And there were times where the Kraken were getting the power play goals, and that was helping them, get the 2 points or, bringing themselves back into games. But I think, for me, the biggest one you said was goaltending, right? And I think the play of Philip Grubauer, especially, you look at the years past and then how he performed this year, his comeback, back to how Grubauer can play, or how we've seen Grubauer play, throughout his career, and to be able to see that, this year, the resurgence to a degree, right? That was pretty fun to watch, and to be able to see, obviously we are in it every single day, whether it's from fans, and you see things like he took a lot of flack over the last couple of years, and not necessarily his fault in all of it, right? When you look at it, it's a team game and the type of chances that were given up. But for him to kind of have that bounce back type of year and be the reason, or a reason, why they were able to find success, especially early in the season, to put them into the spot where, going into the break, you're in a playoff spot, and looking at his numbers, and you can go down, last year versus the year prior and the year prior before that, right? So to kind of block out all of the noise and, kind of go back to playing some of, his best hockey, in a sense, that was fun to watch.
Yeah, definitely. And I think it reinvigorated, or maybe just invigorated, some of those original core Kraken players to some of those like OGs, to see him find his groove like that. It definitely, I think, gave the team a boost in the winter when that was happening. So,
and also, Joey as well. He had a good start to the year as well. And I think the end of the year, when we look at goaltending, I think is more of a team. It's not like the goaltending let them down, and we heard Bots talk about that as well. It wasn't the goaltending's fault this year, as to they went out and did their job. It's not.
You always say you can't win a game if you don't score a goal. You can't.
That is facts, right? You have to, like we said, you have to score more goals than they do, and so the object obviously is to score goals and try to keep them out as well. And they did a good job of that when it comes to keeping them out and giving your team an opportunity to win each and every game. And that's all you can ask for, right?
Okay, a couple of the other things, these kind of go hand in hand. We've touched on this a little bit, but I think one of the other big positives of the season was really seeing some of these prospects, some of these young guys step up and shine. And I was just talking with someone the other day that made a really good point about how when you have a young team and young talent and you're trying to get them experience at this level, you also have to be careful with confidence and with balancing those minutes and those situations that you put them in, because you also don't want to just ice a super young team in first and second line minutes every night and just have them get crushed in the National Hockey League, because that will tank the confidence of some of these young players when we're talking about the younger generation, and if they are more soft or whatever it is, or they take feedback differently. Like I actually would frame it as that. It's just a different way of communication, really. Like, I think that was actually a really positive. I think there's perhaps a perception that we should have just been throwing out kids on the top line every single night to just get eaten alive by the Connor McDavids of the world. That's not necessarily great for skill development either, because they're not finding themselves in situations as much that can build confidence. So anyways, I'm curious about your take on that, but I just thought that we should shout out Ryan Winterton, the season that he had, Jacob Melanson, the impact that he had, the clear role that he played himself into, Oscar Fisker-Molgaard as well. So
yeah, and I think you're right. There is a balance.
Oh, and Berkeley, of course.
Yep, there's a balance to it, and when you think about even just Berkeley getting some minutes on the power play, and whether it was the top unit, right? It was going on the second power play unit, but it's still getting a look, getting to go out on the power play and see where he fits at different times. I know Edzo talked a lot during the season about wanting to see him more, and you started to see a little bit more, whether, getting Berkeley minutes at the wing, and then, a few times at center, and kind of just going back and forth versus having to do that every single night, down the stretch. Like you said, it can be difficult, right? You don't want to stunt the confidence. You don't want to stunt their growth going into the offseason or, pushing towards a playoff run. But, at the end of the day, you do want to see how those kids can perform, but sometimes it has to be in a more limited capacity, right? Maybe just making it up, say Eberle takes a penalty, right? And he's in the box now, or it's a coincidental, he's got to wait till a whistle. Well, now let's give Berkeley an opportunity to go up in that sense. Or, somebody goes back, has to get stitches, and just throwing things out. Those are situations where you can put younger guys into a different spot or a different role and just let them get a little bit of taste of what, the first line would be like, versus saying, hey, there's 5 games left, we're just going to go throw you up there and just see what happens. I think there's ways that you can slowly implement them and just kind of see what they're doing. Like I said, the easiest one was Berkeley getting a little bit more power play time and looking at him on the power play. That's one aspect, but like different shifts going against top line guys, going against the top defensive pair, that can be extremely hard over the course of a 60-minute game. You're playing, let's just throw out 18 minutes, as a forward or even defense. When you look at switching things up, how do we want to see where players can play with different, groupings? I think there's ways to do it, and we can see those things as a little taste of what they can do and how we can see it. It doesn't obviously have to be like, hey, we're throwing you out, you're playing first line for the entire game. But there are situations where you can see, or throughout a period where, hey, a few shifts in a row, things haven't gone well. Well, let's bump Berkeley up. Let's bump Ryan Winterton up. Let's bump these guys up into different positions and different spots. It doesn't mean they have to stay the entire time, but it's good for them, but it's also good for the team, in that sense, to just kind of let them slowly ease into those spots where obviously you hope they get to, one day. Yeah,
it's that balance of opportunity, confidence, and skill development, at that level. And it's and every player is different too. Every player is different. So, and also on that note, we should also mention Shane Wright, of course. I think I already mentioned this, but Lane had great comments in his exit interview about Shane Wright. I think there's so much chatter about this player, but really his point, which did not change in this exit interview. It is the same thing consistently that we heard from him and from Shane the entire year, which is that if you want to be trusted eventually in first, second line minutes, we have to work on the defensive game, which is the same thing that we saw Maddie go through as well. It's just part of developing at this level. And again, it goes back to that theme we've talked about of the habit setting, the culture setting, the systems, just getting this foundation down when you have a young team. And that obviously was a consistent priority of Lane's, and I think it will remain moving forward. And he said, if you ask Shane Wright if he thinks he's a better player today than he was at the start of the year, I think he will tell you, yes, I am a better player in the National Hockey League today, despite the point production, because it goes back to the same thing with the whole team. You have to have that strong defensive foundation and then build back that offensive game from there. So anyway, I just think, I feel like that message hasn't gotten out enough, to be honest. So I just wanted to reiterate that, but you can hear it from them directly. So I would also say it was a good year for Shane Wright in that way as well. So, and then the last thing that I had kind of on this good list, we've already kind of touched on, but just really that culture, that standard setting, that identity setting, it was very, very intentional. Jason Bottrell has said that Lane has been involved in the meetings of what kinds of players they want to add to this mix in the off season, and really, really part of this vision moving ahead. And I think that is very positive for this team. So that makes me feel optimistic. So, yeah.
Right on. Anything else?
Any last? I know. I feel like there's so much. There's so much we could say. There's so much to unpack after such I'd say a wild season, but I think it was a lot to process. It was a condensed season, and just just a lot. So
Hey, every season has its ups and its downs. It's the roller coaster of a 82 game season, and obviously, I think at the end of the day, unfortunate, right? Obviously, the Kraken did not get to the goal. The first goal of every year is to make the playoffs, but now we play the waiting game, and makes it for a long summer. But at the end of the day, that gives you enough time. Whether it's we're looking at the front office to make decisions, for the players to go in and have a strong offseason. Get work on whether it's the strength, whether it's the individual skills, right, to come into next year and the goal doesn't change, right? Your first goal is always to make the playoffs, because you can't get to the ultimate goal if you don't make the playoffs. So, it's step by step, and, now we just get to play the waiting game.
And it's worth saying, too, that this year, unlike the last 2 years, they were playing meaningful games in March. Yeah. They were playing very, very meaningful hockey almost all the way to the end. And that is really, I think, everything, even though it was hard, even just for us these last couple months, that experience for those young players to feel the pressure, the intensity, the physical toll of how long the season is, and that condensed season, all those things are super valuable experience for the whole group moving forward. And sitting with the feeling of losing and the way they went out. Yeah, it sucks. And you can learn a lot from that crappy feeling.
Yeah. Yes, you can.
Yeah. So, okay. Well, on that note, actually, though, on that note, we got to give a shout out to Drew, our producer extraordinaire, and to Stu, our editor behind the scenes here, who have put together a highlight reel of funny and iconic, perhaps, and whimsical moments from the season of Signals from the Deep. So we haven't even seen it yet.
Nope.
So
I can't wait to watch it.
Thank you so much to all of you for tuning in to our show, listening to us ramble, for tolerating the comments about Disney when I'm sure so many of you do not care to hear about it, but we do. We appreciate it all. Thank you for listening. Thank you for sticking with this team through the highs and the lows and the roller coaster that it is. That is what hockey is all about. I always say, because John, Forslund, Tommy, hockey is a game of emotion. And that's what makes it so heartbreaking and so freaking awesome, too. So thank you to all of you. Drew, thank you for your work this whole season. JT, thank you for tolerating sitting across the table from me for the whole season. Your insight is so appreciated.
Well, it's the other way around. It's thank you for tolerating me and my BS that I bring to the table each and every, well, I guess episode. I was going to say every week, but it's not every week, each and every episode.
Each and every episode, of course. It's very fun. I love getting to do this with all of you. So thank you. And thank you to all of you for watching and listening and all of your support of this team. We appreciate you so much. And enjoy the highlights. The biggest off-season acquisition in my eyes, if you will. And that is JT's new 7-foot Jar Jar Binks statue.
Didn't even have to convince Lexi to go purchase it. She was all on board.
Well, I heard a little story. Actually, I think you initially shared this story in a smaller group about how you remember Stevie when he was 2 years old.
Yeah, he was a little bit older, maybe, I don't know, 4 or 5 or whatever. But yeah, he was a neighbor, his parents and I are good, pretty good friends and whatnot. All that, all it's telling me is I'm getting old.
So is Stevie. I think he would probably say the same.
Who's the funniest on this year's team?
Who's the funniest on the team? Well, I mean, I'm going to go with Monty. That one's it. But, a second pick for me, Larson.
So Ebbs will get on the Hawks, and he'll get Nickelback, all his rock on. And then Monty comes in the room, and he starts switching it up. And when Reichs is back, Reichs puts in his 2 cents. And then when Monty was gone for a bit, Muzz started getting on the tracks.
Oh.
And he was actually pretty good. I actually didn't mind Muzz's music.
Cool. Another super random question. I want to know, who do you think on the team would be best equipped to survive a zombie apocalypse?
Probably Groovy.
Oh yeah.
You got horses.
All right, who would be the worst? Who would you not want to be in the zombie apocalypse with?
Wentz. Maddie.
The list
Cats.
keeps going. This keeps going.
We had an incredible moment on our broadcast in the afternoon game against the Oilers with your son, Booker Brown in Climate Pledge Arena, who is having himself a day.
To say he enjoyed himself, like that'd be an understatement. The candy got to him, the root beer got to him, the ice cream got to him, but I'll also say he
like
is
father, like son. Long flight, lights are off, and JT's been like asleep for a while. I was asleep for a while, but I wake up because I smell something, and I'm like just very strong. And you know what I smell? I smell the very distinct scent of sour sugar candy. And I take off my headphones and I hear this crinkling bag. But JT has been laying next to me unmoving here in his chair in the dark. He has his hat over his eyes, like 2 pairs of headphones on, and he is feeding himself Sour Patch Kids from his pocket while he is sleeping.
Yes, everyone is protecting their hair except for me.
But that's surprising knowing you.
I got shorter hair. It's probably not going to get caught in. And then I said at the end of the day, if I just have to get a haircut, I have to get a haircut.
Fast.
I'm not worried about it.
Okay, I want to put the clip in here, though, so that everybody can witness firsthand what JT just described.
Who would you not want to cook for you?
Veneers.
Okay.
Because his family's always here, and like he's always getting cooked for, and he's always eating at like the really nice restaurants and good places. So I just feel like he just doesn't really use a lot of stuff at home.
Before we build any sort of graphics, full screen graphics, a lower third or whatever, we have to figure out what that scoreboard is going to look like, because that is up there the most. It has the most information. Anybody that's passing by, they're going to look at that first to see who's playing, what the score is, and how much time is left. And so that thing is the most important graphic we have. So we decided we should start with that and build everything else from there.
Who on the team would you say needs a little help in the style department on the game day fits?
Well, I am pleased to report that at the start of the year, I was informed that Capo Caco was living with Ellie Tolvanen once again. He has found his own place, though, now.
Okay, when we were in Anaheim, though, and you ripped that saw behind me, I know you know what I'm talking about. Were you waiting for the moment? We need your perspective on this. Like the moment I started talking.
Well, yeah, kind of.
If you could only eat one food for the rest of your life, what food would you eat? Like one meal?
Probably a peanut butter and jam sandwich.
Jam, not jelly.
Not jelly.
Like you want like raspberry?
Yeah, jelly's too like fluffy almost. I like a denser, sweeter jam.
I took my team on a kayaking trip up into the islands and saw bioluminescence, where little organisms that light up and they're paddling and they're just sort of very ethereal, beautiful, but sort of dangerous experience, because you can't see what's below, but there's these organisms that are just stars in the sea. And we're like, we gotta make this jersey glow.
Thank you for tuning into Signals from the Deep with Piper Shaw and JT Brown. Give us an assist by rating your show on your listening app. You can watch the full video episodes on the Seattle Kraken's YouTube. Go Kraken!